We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we need to approve our agenda for today. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Moved by Bob and seconded by Phil to approve the agenda. And have you had a chance to read through the minutes?
Yes.
Do we have to vote on the agenda?
Oh,
I mean,
someday I'm going to start remembering that, maybe.
to make it official?
All right, yes, thank you. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The agenda is approved. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes for June 20th?
I have none.
Phil?
I'm fine.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All right. Motion by Phil, a second by Bob to approve the minutes from last month. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right.
Yeah, sure enough. We got that through before Rachel, that's good.
So, we have two petitions here today. The first is BOA 718-1901. A variance to allow 53-foot front yard setback between the centerline point of Stewart Valley Drive and a proposed building instead of the required 65 feet pursuant to Chapter 10472 of the Winona County zoning ordinance. Blake?
Thank you. Yeah, so Bruce and Jamie Inks are looking to build a shed back there on Stewart Valley Drive that'll be 53 feet from the center line of the road instead of the required 65 feet like you mentioned. And it's kind of back at the dead end of Stewart Valley Drive off of 248 there. I believe they're the second to last house back on the drive there. And this map kind of just shows out approximately how that structure would fit in. It's going to be about 20 feet off the property line there, so it'll meet all of the other setbacks except the road setback one. And then there are utilities also that run through the right-of-way here on the north side of the road along their property as well. And so, yeah, I guess the key topics here is that it's used for storage and a workshop for non-farm rural property. And they chose the site within the road setback to avoid cutting down some apple trees that are on the rear part of the property. And there are also some steep slopes to the rear of the property as well. And here's actually an old video from Chuck from the last time. There was a similar variance that was heard from this one from Chad Pike. And you can kind of see the topography that was there at the time. So it's kind of flatter, closer to the roads, and then it gets steep back there, and you could kind of see the apple trees back in there. And then I'll have a follow-up video of what the site looks like about 3 weeks ago. Yeah, and here is what it was like 3 weeks ago when I stopped out to the site. So where they're approximately looking at putting the shed. And you can kind of see the apple trees back there that have been attempted to be preserved. They kind of cut up to them, so.
Is that the township road right there then, Blake?
Yep, that's Stewart Valley Drive right there. Yep, and that's pretty much terminates at the next person's property line where it becomes a private drive instead of a township road. You can kind of see where they have a little turnaround there for their equipment. And a gate there too, it looked like as well, so. And yeah, there's just the photo of what the site looks like.
And what is this excavation?
So I'm guessing that they're prepping for an approval here, but yeah, as you can see, that's why we're here. There, there hasn't been any approval. So there has been some excavation done. They are still below, they're not in shoreland or anything, so they would be below the land disturbance permit qualifications. So there wouldn't be any permit, I guess, really needed to do that work, but it is a pretty significant amount of earth that's been.
Yeah, I went out there, I was kind of surprised.
But yeah, I guess I'll leave it there, if you guys have any more questions for me.
Does anyone have questions for Blake?
Just the one thing is, does the town road end there, or does it continue?
So it continues past their property and then it terminates at the next property owner who lives at that end of Stewart Valley Drive there, yep.
Is there potential for that road to ever be extended?
To be continued, I know the last property owner there owns a pretty significant portion of land, so I mean, it would have to be an extension through them, but I'm not sure what the potential is there. I don't think that that's anything that's being looked at, but I don't.
Is it open valley beyond it, or?
No, it starts to get pretty steep back beyond it in that next person's, I mean, there maybe would be a little further that you could extend that's fairly flat, but the slopes do start to pick up not too far beyond that.
Not room for a...
You can kind of see where they already have a little, I mean, but that must just be an access drive for them, but,
Yeah,
I know it doesn't continue incredibly much
okay.
further, but.
So what would be the driveway access? It would come off the existing drive to the house, to this new shed?
Yeah, I believe the access would, I believe what I saw represented is kind of that there'd be a turn up, that they would pull directly into it because the 64 runs parallel to the road and they would pull equipment in that way, so they would use the existing access to kind of turn up and into the shed.
And then could you talk about, you said there were utility lines, what?
Yeah, so the utility lines are in the right of way on the north side of the road, kind of along their property here, and it runs up to this next
They're buried?
house here. Nope, it is overhead lines.
Because it was mentioned in the packet, and I had, as a health and safety issue.
Yeah, that was kind of a carryover from the last staff report, but I mean, they would be about 20 feet off of those overhead lines, so.
Do you
There's
know?
no set official standard or
no, there is
setback
not.
for
No.
lines?
No, that's correct.
Because that was new to me, and so I just wanted to understand that.
So,
If they're over it is, then there is, but.
Right, but yeah, there's no
Right.
defined setback. They just can't build a structure underneath it, correct?
so the culvert that the township is requiring them is for what?
I guess that'd probably be a good question, that maybe they are proposing a second access. I didn't really see a detailed plan of that, but just the way it was laid out, I was kind of assuming that they would use the existing access to enter it. But, that might be a better question for the applicants.
So if they were to move it back a little further, I mean, I recognize the trees are there, but those trees might be pretty compromised because of the excavation. Would
Yeah,
would
that's-
the setback be met then? Is there any reason,
Yeah,
except
like
for
they would have to
trees?
move back at least 12 feet to meet the required setback, and
But it's not, I didn't know if it was
yeah, it doesn't,
steep.
no,
or-
yes, I mean, they would, I'm not sure if this falls within MRB, because that would then bring, so the Mississippi River Bluff setback, I'm not sure if it falls within that, because that would actually lower the slope stuff to the 12% before they'd need a conditional use permit, so maybe that,
Okay.
because I believe that they would be within a mile of Highway 61 here, which is where that Mississippi River Valley Bluffs
Probably.
setback comes, so the slope, there are more protections on slopes, I guess, within that mile, so they might be pushing 12% if they move back 12 feet. I hadn't measured that because it wasn't a part of the request.
Okay, and so with this excavation, and this might be a better question for the petitioner, the new shed would be in the bottom of this?
Yeah, or that they're gonna bring some fill in maybe to elevate it a little bit that way to get a good base, but I'm assuming that it would sit down in there a little bit, yes.
Is there a slope required beside the shed or a wall or, I mean, for any of the other permits or anything, you know, required?
No, so as long as they're below the 12% slopes, then there wouldn't be any permitting outside of that.
Okay.
Once you go above the 12%, then there's some soil erosion control plans that would be required.
So, okay. Well, thank you. Does anyone else have questions? So I've held forth here a while.
Thank you.
With the petitioner, are the angsts here? So what, come up and state your name and address, and
I'm Bruce Angst, live at 522 Stewart Valley Drive, and I'm petitioning for the pole shed. First of all, there's a few things that are a little different. I'd like to straighten out, like, I believe the packet says the maximum height is 14 feet. The sidewalls are 14 feet high. I don't know what the actual height is at the center of the trusses. But we just, when we started this, we just specified 14-foot sidewalls so that we can install a 12-foot door.
How wide is it?
40 feet.
20, yeah. So we'll go up about 7 more feet, so.
And then one other issue, at the township board meeting, they suggested the 24-inch culvert based off, they believe my neighbor's culvert was 24 inches below me, but it's actually 18 inches. And I would very much prefer to stay at the 18-inch level.
Well, that's your existing driveway.
My existing driveway does not have a culvert.
Oh, but you, oh, so you're gonna put in a driveway for this?
Yes, I wanted to eliminate my driveway and move it up,
Oh,
come up between the pole shed and the house.
okay.
I don't myself know about culvert size, or if that Eric would know or Blake would know.
Being that it's a township road, they have control on that, so we actually.
So you'd have to talk to your supervisors.
Because they would issue the permit for the driveway, right? Yeah, so,
Okay.
And some, okay, in response to some of these other items in the packet, the planning and zoning site characteristics, as far as it being prime farmland that they're trying to preserve, you know, it states right in there that it's 6 to 12% slopes and that it's a non-prime rating for cropland. Yeah, I just can't foresee it being a cropland over there where this pole shed would go.
Right.
well, what do you plan to do with that slope, or is there gonna be a concrete back wall on the pole shed?
The pole shed will have 2 walls out of concrete.
Oh, and it will be high enough so that that bank won't, it'll take, or you can get a decent.
Right, the plan is to slope it back up to the building and have a drainage ditch all the way
Okay,
around.
okay, I see, yeah. And so to move it back, that'd be a lot more excavating and sloping back into the trees, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, every foot or 2 you go back, it's a lot of excavating.
Yep.
Because even, like I say, even beyond the building, we need that drainage area around it. Then on to some other items, like the health and safety risks. I did call XL Energy about that, and they stated to me that 10 feet is all I need clearance. And that 10 feet is a horizontal measurement. The lines are much higher than the building is going to be, so there will actually be more clearance than the 20 feet. I don't believe that should be any issue, really. And I know the township was a little worried about, some of their biggest worry was like crushed rock getting thrown up against the building. But we're right at the end of a dead-end road, and the snow plows are very slow. It's uphill from the road. I don't foresee any issue like that ever happening.
How far will it be from the edge of the road?
I don't know exactly. I want to say the road is what, about 15 feet wide, maybe.
Something like that.
So 53 minus 7 feet, I guess, would be about the edge. That one corner.
Yeah, just to the corner, yeah.
And just a few other issues. I know if you took the cost and work completely out of it and you did move back and you took out all the trees, one other thing that worries us is now you have water runoff. You have a pole shed back behind your house instead of kind of alongside. And so that water is going to be a little more possible to run towards your house. Just another reason we would not like to go back much farther. I know the previous owner had talked about putting a building down in the front yard where it's flat, but for a lot of reasons with drain fields and too close to the road and just kind of an eyesore to the neighbors in the whole area. We obviously are trying to do the right thing, put it up alongside our house. Then the one other issue in the packet, it states that it's not reasonable use, the building. I guess I don't quite understand that. I have snowplow equipment and bobcat and trailers and snowmobiles that I want to store in there. I guess just to me that seems like reasonable use of a building, but pretty much I think that's everything I have for you at this point.
Does anyone have questions for Mr. Angst?
I don't, that I know of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we need to open the public hearing now. Is there a motion for that?
So moved.
Moved by Rachel,
Second.
second by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? If not, the public meeting is open. If anyone would like to speak for or against this petition, please come forward and state your name and address.
I'm Pat Derman. I own the land to the west of Bruce. I'm 100% for what he's doing compared to where the last guy wanted to put it. We are within the mile of the river, and my property all the way back is within a mile of the river. And when there was a question about the road stopping and possibly building later, there'll be no houses behind the house that we've got there on the farm. That's the only building that, we got a pole building someday that we have a permit for that we're gonna build in the valley there. But there'll be no housing development or anything like that. I'm not for that at all in that kind of a setting. So we're within a mile of the river, and as he moves against that slope, then it is gonna get steep on him right away. I did excavating for 40 years and another 10 years for other contractors. I had 50 years of equipment and so on. Basically what he's doing, I would do the same thing, and he can manage that. And the road, as far as if they're plowing snow, when Bruce from the township was talking there, he's gonna have his driveway, off of the road, and the buildings on the other side of that. You could go by at 40 miles an hour and not be able to put, rock and stuff up there. But that's sitting in a meeting, and he's trying to visualize what's out there. So that'll never be a problem. And the property line is where we both meet there. That's the end of the township road. It's a dead end. We've got it gated, and so that's the end of it. We open it for the school bus through the school year, and we open it up for the snow plows. But basically, we swing one gate halfway shut. Otherwise, you got the public all the time. You've seen the two roads on each side of it. Those are hill roads going up to the farmland on the ridge that we have. So that's the only reason that you see those roads in there. They look like they go somewhere where they do to the cropland, but that's all. It's never going to be for public use. So I'm all for what he's doing, and I don't have a bit of a problem. I'm glad to have him for neighbor. Thank you.
The down road is a four-rod road, right?
This road is a little bit narrower than the average.
Or it's just two rods, or?
It may be two, it could be as low as a rod and a half. Because Frank Stewart, the land that we have there, when Frank was back there, it was a dirt road. And before one of the guys got off the board, this is probably 40 years ago, 50 now.
Yeah.
He said, I'll get your road back there. So it was more of a lane and a half type of road. And that's basically where it is, yeah. It's definitely not a standard.
Township road, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because that was my reason I was asking about the building, because it doesn't really matter much, but like if it's on a county road or something and it's gonna be expanded, then it's a big future expense, whereas here, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Any other question?
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Would anyone else come forward and state your name and address?
Hi, guys. My name is Brenna Crawford. My address is 25565 Stewart Valley Drive, which is directly across from here. So our two houses face each other. You know, it would be nice if it could be done, staying with, proper setback, but gets pretty steep back there. So I understand what he's trying to do, and it will be nice to have the things put away. There's a little confusion on my part. I thought that there was not going to be a new access point, which I would prefer. I thought it was going to be coming like off their existing driveway and then going up instead of making like a turnaround spot. Because as Pat mentioned, that's pretty much the dead end. We don't want like a big turnaround thing there, where, if that makes sense. So if I could get some clarification on that, maybe from Mr. Angst. And then he also mentioned to me that he will be putting the doors on the side facing his house, which is really nice for me. Having the doors facing right to mine would make a big difference. So I appreciate that. I think he's doing the best that he can, and I think it will look nice.
Thank you. Maybe, Blake, we could put a picture and you could show where the access, so then we'd all understand that.
Can you hear me if I'm over here? I plan on moving the driveway over here in between the pole shed and the house. This driveway does not have a culvert or anything, so it drops down and it creates a steep driveway. So we want to install a culvert, kind of level out the driveway as much as we can, and then be able to turn and either go to the pole shed or into the house. So this driveway would be eliminated.
And where's your neighbor's house? That was,
She lives right over here.
oh, okay.
Okay.
So actually tearing up the old driveway and
Yeah.
okay.
Does that
My
answer your question?
Yes,
Oh, good.
that was all.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any questions for me? Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Right. Is there anyone else who would want to speak for or against this petition? And for the third time, or possibly the fourth, is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against this petition? Hearing none, could we have a motion to close the public meeting?
So move.
Moved by Bob and
Second.
seconded by Phil. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The public meeting is closed. And so, any discussion here? Any thoughts on this before we go through the findings?
Just one question. On page 25 in our packet, it has this map. Red line, I'm assuming, is designating the road. So what's the purple line designating?
I don't know.
I think the purple line is the setback, like what the legal setback would be. That was my understanding. So if they were behind that purple line, they would not need a variance, but since their building is going through that purple line, they do need a variance. Is that correct?
So are there existing buildings already within the setback? Looks like on the map.
Neighboring building, yeah.
There's,
There are a few other structures
That are in-
That are within the setback already,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
But this would be the closest to the road, but there
Yep.
are a few others that are within the,
Okay. And do you know exactly where the center line of the road is?
Right between those purple lines.
No, I mean, is the road? As traveled, is that how, the legal thing? Okay, so that's it, all right. Because, yeah, it might not be even on the,
and the closest existing structure is 57 feet from the center of the road. So this would be 4 feet.
4 feet, okay.
Excuse me, Seth. There is, the house when you first come in
Maybe
is
we should
only
come
like
to the mic
33 feet from the center of the road. So,
Could you say this in the mic and then it'll be recorded? Thank you.
okay, the Denzer household, when you first turn into Stewart Valley Drive, that house is only 33 feet from the center of the line. And I understand the house was there before the road was even built. And he has some other buildings too that are close. But the only reason I say that is I don't believe it's been an issue all these years with his house even being 33 feet off the center line. But,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
So are you ready to go through the findings?
I would say so, if everyone else is.
Okay. The variance request is, let's see, hold on.
Here.
The variance request is not in harmony with the intent and purpose of the ordinance. The setbacks were implemented for the health and safety of present and future residents of adjoining properties. The proposed structure would be placed within 20 feet of power lines, which would be a health and safety risk. Do we agree with this? What are
No,
people's thoughts?
because I think it's been established that it's a 10-foot, and I don't even know if that's a legal setback. I know they advise no trees within 10 feet, but, so I don't think it is a problem.
What do you think, Phil? Rachel?
I mean, he said he called the power company and asked them, and they said 10 feet, and that's 10 feet across. So I don't know if we would take his word for it on that, or if there's other expertise beyond what's in the packet in the room.
I
would take his word because.
I would too.
Because I work with Tri-County Electric or My Energy and
Right.
knowing setbacks and things. And the only places that's really critical are grain elevators and silos and things like that, and trees. And I don't think there's a legal requirement that you can't plant a tree under a power line. They just don't want it, and it's not common sense.
Right, and then you have to keep trimming.
And structures can be if the power line is high enough over it. But
Okay, so would we want to say that we're okay with this? That's what
yes,
I'm hearing.
Yes, I'm okay with it,
Okay.
with it's in harmony.
The variance request is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan emphasizes the preservation of agricultural land for future use. The land the proposed shed would be built on is zoned as agricultural. The building is a large, non-agricultural oriented garage and is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. How do people feel about this one?
Would you like the finding on number one, the change to remove the last sentence and address that there are no legal requirements regarding setbacks from power lines, and according to the power company, a 10-foot distance is sufficient?
Sounds good. Attorney Nuttall?
I wouldn't say that there's no legal setbacks because I don't know for sure, but that the power company is 10. Oh, okay, that way, right. Okay. I'm good with that.
All right, so how do people feel about number two, the comprehensive plan?
Well, it's obviously not an agricultural area in
Not
use.
anymore.
Right, yeah, so essentially, are there any other similar structures on the road?
Yes.
Looks like it.
I mean, pole, what will it be, a steel roof and steel sides and, okay. Yeah, are there others on the road?
Yes.
Okay,
I mean, it used to be ag land, but it isn't anymore.
No.
It's big
Yeah,
lots
yeah,
and
right,
houses.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like once they built houses there, it no longer, I mean, I know it's still
Yeah.
zoned as agricultural, but it's clear that there isn't going to be agricultural activity on that lot that the building will prevent, it doesn't seem to me.
Okay. So, Attorney Nadeau, how would this one be phrased?
Is it
Speaking
zoned?
loudly over there.
I'm thinking,
Is it zoned?
I think you could say, although the area is zoned for agricultural use, there is no, it would be, there would be practical difficulties in using the space that would be used for the pole shed for agricultural use.
maybe the specific site identified would not be used for agricultural land, even though the entire parcel might be.
Right.
What is the attitude for, and I mean, essentially it's residential for storage or other use buildings on residential, because, like up in Garvin Heights, which is a city of Winona, there are several, it's kind of a standard practice to have large, larger pole sheds or different things, so.
People have a lot of things to store.
Right. So I don't think we can, I have trouble saying it's not in harmony with the intent
Right.
and,
Right,
I don't think it's an issue.
okay.
I don't know if I'd say it's in harmony, but,
We're waiting for some wording on this.
Struggling with this one on the wording. I got around
well, we could,
How many acres is the parcel? I forget where that was. Oh, it's 5.77 acres.
a lot of it's probably steep.
Yeah, it looks very steep
Yeah.
towards the back there.
Well, maybe we can think about number 3
Okay.
then. The applicant has not established that there are practical difficulties in complying with the official control and proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner.
Yeah. Or he has established.
Pardon?
I thought you said not established, but,
Well, that's what this says.
Staff analysis draft says has not.
oh, I was just reading the, has that been established? Are you, am I in the right place?
Any thoughts on
Three?
that?
I'm looking at page 14, but it's the same. You go flip one more page. It's a draft,
Oh,
and she's reading off this one.
oh,
which is a
okey-dokey.
draft of the same.
All right.
So the question is, have practical difficulties been established for putting the pole shed in another spot that would not need a variance?
I think it has demonstrated that it would be difficult. If it was just the apple trees and not the slope and all that, then I would, even though I don't like cutting live trees, I would, if it was a, 80 or 90-foot oak tree and a huge stump, it'd be more practical. So I think he has established that there are practical difficulties in complying.
So the two options he would have in complying would be to move it back toward the steep hill, which he has expressed reason for not wanting to do that seem reasonable in terms of water drainage and lots of excavation on a increasingly steep slope. And then the reason for not building it in front of the house in that area where his drain field is, it sounded like there is the drain field issue, but it's also an aesthetic issue that both he and the neighbors would be unhappy with and would
Yeah.
potentially be a problem in terms of the driveway access.
Yeah, I think
So-
So are those,
agree.
is that sufficient for practical difficulties, that it's on the septic drain field or near it, and that it would be a spot that the neighbors would like less, and that would be harder to access with a driveway?
It seems
think so.
reasonable to me.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
would
it
say,
seems very
yeah,
reasonable that he wouldn't
yeah.
want to move it back in that same location towards the steep hill. And it seems like they have looked at the other spot in front of the house and determined that it's less ideal for a few different small reasons that sort of come to a.
So there's another one that needs to be reworded.
Okay.
Okay. Number 4, the variance request is due to special conditions or circumstances unique to the property, not created by owners of the property since enactment of the ordinance.
I agree.
We are in agreement with that one.
Yep.
And it doesn't even need to be reworded.
Okay.
All right. The variance will not alter the essential character of the locality nor substantially impair property values or the public health, safety, or welfare in the vicinity. There's 9 dwellings on Stewart Valley Drive, 4 of which have accessory structures.
I agree. It will not.
Yeah, I agree.
Economic considerations alone do not constitute practical difficulties.
And those have not been mentioned yet, so.
Right.
Correct.
And it's not alone. I mean, it's possible to dig further into the hill, but it'd be costly.
And be
But
more
it's not the-
problematic.
But it's not the only problem.
Yeah. Water drainage is even a
Yeah.
bigger issue than
Yeah.
that.
Okay, number 7, the variance cannot be alleviated by a reasonable method other than a variance and is the minimum variance which would alleviate the practical difficulty. Building any structure on this site would involve practical difficulties because of topographic features, water conditions, utilities, and setbacks.
I agree.
That sounds true, yep.
And number 8, the request is not a use variance and does not have the effect of allowing any use that is not allowed in the zoning district, permit a lower degree of flood protection than the regulatory flood protection elevation, or permit standards lower than those required by state law. See, the site is not
agree.
within a
Yeah.
floodplain and a variance would not
And
permit
it's-
lower
And
standards.
accessory buildings are allowed.
So,
Is there a height limit on accessory buildings? 35, yeah. Okay, he's well within that.
so
Let's see.
Attorney Nuttall is working on our wording for the first 3.
Good time to read through the conditions.
Yeah.
So, the conditions, this petition for the following variance to allow a 53-foot setback for a new structure from the center line of Stewart Valley Drive instead of the required 65 feet, with the following conditions. The owners of the property to which this variance is issued will abide by all representations and commitments made during the permitting process, as well as before the Board of Adjustment, in accordance with all conditions to the variance. The petitioners obtain the required development certificate and comply with all relevant regulations and standards of Winona County and the state of Minnesota, to include meeting the state electrical code and obtaining the required permit and inspection if applicable. The petitioners submit an elevation profile of the proposed project at the time if submittal of the development certificate. The petitioners submit and comply with an erosion control plan that includes erosion practices used, a schedule of when measures will be installed and how they will be maintained, documentation of how the project will not increase stormwater runoff to neighbors during or after construction, and how sediment will be prevented from leaving the site during construction. And number 5, the owners of the property shall allow Winona County staff to inspect the property annually or as otherwise necessary to evaluate compliance with the variance issued.
So does a driveway permit fall under the development certificate?
So we would,
The township would take care of that.
does that need to be an additional condition?
I think we should mention.
I-
I think we have some standard language that we've used in prior petitions we can copy over. if that's
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's with the township and the county?
No, Rolling Stone Township.
Driveway permit,
Driveway permit required.
okay.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Do we have a motion then to approve this variance with the 5?
Would you like your language for the first 3 findings?
Well, yeah, I
Yes.
was putting a lot of faith in you.
I hope I caught your discussions. All right, so for the first one, I have, rather than the setbacks were implemented for the health and safety of present and future residents of adjoining properties, the proposed setback would be placed within 20 feet of power lines, which would be a health and safety risk. Instead, I have, the setbacks were implemented for health and safety of present and future residents of adjoining properties. However, there are no setback requirements relating to power lines in our ordinance, and the power company information to the petitioner indicated that a 10-foot distance would be sufficient.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
For the second one, rather than the comprehensive plan emphasizes the preservation of agricultural land use for future use, the land the proposed shed would be built on is zoned as agricultural. The building is a large, non-agriculture oriented garage and is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. But now read, the comprehensive plan emphasizes the preservation of agricultural land for future use. Although zoned for agricultural use, the specific site selected would not be used as agricultural land, and the storage of equipment in an enclosed structure rather than outdoors would make the request consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay. It's good with me.
Rather than, although the petitioners have identified the location of the septic field and presence of trees in the vicinity as practical difficulties, the area around the trees has already been disturbed to the point of potential impact on the trees. Additionally, the structure is not a residence or essential building for farming operations, so the proposal is not for a reasonable use within the zoning district. It would read, the practical difficulties in this case include avoiding a septic drain field, avoiding issues with runoff towards the residents, and the increasingly steep slopes if located outside the setback. The petitioner has looked at other locations, but this location is the most reasonable and would allow them to store equipment in a building rather than outdoors.
Sounds good with me.
Thank you. All right, so with the rewording of the first three findings of fact, the conditions with the addition of a sixth condition that a driveway permit is required, do I have a motion to approve this variance?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Bob and seconded by Phil. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There's something I have to read here,
Oh, yes.
but I have to find
Find
it.
it first, right?
Just hang on a minute. Darn it.
I know it's somewhere.
Yeah, it's on the back of the agenda, which I had totally misplaced.
Here we go.
Thank you.
That's where I saw it.
Right. Board of Adjustment appeal to District Court. All decisions by the Board of Adjustment in granting variances or in hearing appeals from any administrative order, requirement, decision, or determination shall be final, except that any aggrieved person or persons or any department, board, or commission of the jurisdiction or of the state shall have the right to appeal within 30 days after receipt of notice of the decision to the district court in the county in which the land is located on questions of law and fact. Any party that would like to submit an appeal to the decision rendered at the public hearing must do so to the district court. Planning and Environmental Services is not responsible for filing the appeal or obtaining representation by counsel for the petitioner. So, you have your variance and a big project ahead of you.
You're welcome. Have fun. It's a
See ya,
fun
Pat.
building.
Take care.
Then there is a second petition, BOA 7/18/1902, to consider the petition of Richard and Linda Seidel, Seidel Revocable Trust, in regards to the following: a variance to allow a dwelling/recreational cabin and garage between the toe and bluff top of a bluff pursuant to Chapter 11-614 of the Winona County zoning ordinance.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
And Board of Adjustment members, Linda Seidel came in at noon and dwelling and detached accessory structure versus attached, and what the implications might be, said that August meeting of Board of Adjustment is fine for them. So she has to have it tabled to allow us time to do that, and also for them to discuss whether or not the structure could be separated, because the recreational cabinet itself is under, and it would require a variance, but they might want it to be a little taller to include a loft. So while they hammer out what, or whether or not they might want to do that, that gives us just a little bit more time, and that would be kind of a win-win for all of us.
Okay.
So do we need a motion?
Pardon?
Should I move to table it?
Please.
Yes.
Do I have to be specific? I want to say the exact thing.
Just say so move, and then Cherie can.
Okay, so moved.
And is there a second to table this petition, the Seidel's petition, until a future meeting?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. This petition will be tabled until a future meeting. And is there anything else that we need to attend to here?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a motion by Phil to adjourn and a second by Bob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. This meeting is then adjourned.